Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Jill Shwed, founder and CEO of Nasdaq-listed Checkpoint Software Technologies, to discuss the fast-changing threat landscape, the cyber pandemic. Jill, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
It's great being here. Thank you.
You got it. And what is the big security concern around AI chat technologies such as ChatGPT?
Oh, there's so many. I think these technologies are really producing us for the world a lot of great opportunities, but we're also creating a lot of security threats. For example, ChatGPT can write malware, and you don't have to be an expert anymore to develop malware. You can simply use ChatGPT to write that malware. Also, you can, by the way, even simple things like writing a phishing email, it does an amazing job. We've already seen some of these examples in the wild. So people wrote, they asked ChatGPT to write a malicious code. They asked him to write a phishing email. They connect the two together, and they create a phishing. They create a real attack. So there's so many attempts that we've seen like that, and it's kind of scary.
How did we enter a cyber pandemic?
I think when we kind of when the COVID-19 started, it forced all the work to do remote work. A lot of things moved to the digital world, which I think in many respects it's actually good, even after the fact. But it also means that the attack surface clearly expanded. Things that were never open before to the internet are now open. Software developers that used to work in the office now work remotely. Traders in financial institutions can now work remotely. Even on a national security organization, they work remotely. And that means now that the attack surface is not just the enterprise network within such organizations, it's every home desktop which is susceptible to attack and be used as a jumping point to start an attack on the organization. And when that happens, the attacks can spread fairly quickly and get out of control.
Why are hackers interested in going after cloud-based networks?
First, a lot of the computing environment is expanding or even moving to the cloud. And the cloud creates an unbelievable opportunity for attackers. It can be anything from, somebody steals your a cloud account. I'm talking about the enterprise cloud account and use it to do Bitcoin mining, which is simple, but a big financial risk, all the way to the fact that if all your data is stored in the cloud, you can move it out and steal it in very, very quick speeds. Not only that, when you think about the traditional IT environment, it's protected by so many layers of security that still may not make it impossible to penetrate, but they make it really hard. On the cloud, if there's a small breach, the small breach is going directly to the heart of the internet, to the fastest links. I'll give you a simple example. If I write my password and leave it on my table, it's not a good security practice and I would advise against it, but nothing will happen because my office is locked, nobody got access. Even if they get access, they can't take the password, go home and then go to our server because it's not open to the public. On the cloud, the virtual instance of that is I leave my password in an application on some cloud repository. Somebody scans that repository, find my key, and then they actually, in a matter of seconds, they use that key to get to all our applications. And by the way, that is something that we see on a daily basis that happens to when developers leave a key inside a development environment, feeling that it's not that critical, and suddenly it's used to steal their environment or to get into the production environment.
What are the top industry sectors that cyber criminals find most attractive?
First, I think cyber attackers are trying to get almost everywhere, and they'll succeed where it's easier. So I don't think that we should say that you're in that sector, you're not at risk, and if you're in that sector, you're higher risk. It's actually if you're not protected, you're at a higher risk. But we did find that sectors like healthcare, like education, government are more susceptible. Sometimes, by the way, is because these sectors are less protected. When I'm talking about the government, I'm not talking about the national defense forces. I'm talking about schools, for example, which is also part of education. Or I'm talking about local governments, city councils, and so on. And there's thousands of these in America. every small town has its own institutions. These institutions, by the way, contain all our private data as individuals. I mean, when you pay the local tax, your data is there. When you're registered to the local school, your data is there. And these organizations are in many cases not big enough to kind of develop the right security policies and use the right security tools. So again, healthcare, education, and government have been under increased attacks in the last year.
Can you frame the ransomware problem? Why is it getting worse when there's so many cybersecurity companies out there?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. So first, with ransomware, hackers found a very good way to monetize their attack. In the past, it was, people did hacking for ideological reasons. They did it for government to government espionage. They did it for many reasons. Some did it for crime to steal money, but it was hard. With ransomware, they found almost, I hope it's not the almost because we will block it, but they found an amazing opportunity to make an attack and translate it into big money. And by the way, when you see the evolution of ransomware attack, 5-6 years ago, ransomware on the average $300 to $600. Today, a typical ransomware attack is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we've seen ransomware attack that ended up with companies paying more than $10 million. So it's becoming a big business. And the problem with security vendors today is that companies are investing a lot in security, but they got so many solutions, so much complexity, and these solutions don't work together. So if something that would be blocked or identified on your PC yesterday might come through your remote access network tomorrow and won't be identified. And it's our job to, work together collaboratively to block these attacks, build architectures that are far more consolidated and complete in order to block the attack on all attack fronts. And I think we are trying to do that, and we are investing all our resources in that.
What are Gen 5 attacks and why do they matter?
So over the last few decades, and again, the internet now is celebrating its 30th year as an open network. And through that, I think we went through like 5 generations of different attacks, starting from the very simple antivirus that existed many years ago. And today, the attacks are super sophisticated. Again, you might load an innocent application on your mobile or access a public website that's reputable. This site is connected to many other sites. It will bring an ad that, again, looks innocent. It will be innocent. It will just move to the next computer. And after like 3 or 4 computers, it will download something bad that will attack the target computer. And these attacks are far harder to identify, far harder to block. And by the way, most of our industry kind of got stuck, but because the industry is not anymore a young industry, it's people are in many cases protecting themselves only against 3rd-generation cyber attacks. And we really, really need to step up the level, to level up the level of attack to the 5th generation of cyber attacks. And by the way, one more thing that is important, many companies, both security providers and customers, large organizations and so on, say, you know what, security is such a challenging thing. Let's focus not on detecting the problem and then fixing it. And that's too late. If somebody already hacked to your data and stole your identity, or got to your organization and stole the customer list, it's almost impossible to fix it. Closing the hole when the data is out, it's too late. And we really, really need to step up to what we call prevention first architecture. Do everything that you can to stop the attack before it happens, before it gets in, or before it causes any damage. So I think the number one thing is, how do we do a prevention first architecture that prevents all the different generations of cyber attacks?
Right. And let's wrap up and talk about the enterprise specifically. What are the top concerns that the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, is facing today?
So first, the risks are not getting down, they are just growing. So some viruses that we saw 10 years ago might still hit us. It's not that. But I think the main issues that CISOs face is first the high risk of ransomware and cyber extortion. And we call it now even double extortion, triple extortion, when people use more advanced techniques to extort you. It's between balancing the risk when your organization is wide open. When you have a hybrid work environment, your employees, your customers are everywhere. You need to enable that. You can say it's unsafe to work outside, but you also need to provide a high level of security. The fact that attack surface is growing is a big challenge today. And by the way, today we are more and more seeing more kind of semi-internal risks, because now unfortunately we see big layoffs in companies. Companies really need to worry that these employees don't possess some secrets or don't share them. And by the way, it can even be done accidentally and not just intentionally, but unfortunately some disgruntled employees might have the know-how or the way to get back into the systems, which can turn out to be really, really damaging.
And finally, Gil, what should organizations do to better protect themselves in 2023?
So I think I already alluded to some of it. First, it's about thinking prevention, not just detection. Detecting it's too late. You need to prevent it to start with. I think it's about what I'm calling security architectures that are far more collaborative, that are far more comprehensive. It's not just I got the best vet and the best vet. And again, to somebody not from the industry, it sounds obvious, but to somebody in the industry, we need to understand. A typical company today using over 12 different security solutions. That's unmanageable. And again, it simply doesn't work because these products don't work together. So we need to think about collaborative architectures and the comprehensive architectures. And last and not least is educate our people. I mean, many attacks starts from, what looks like innocent phishing and simply human errors or hackers that exploit human errors. Sometimes in a very sophisticated way, sometimes in a very simple way. So we really, really need to train our employees on cyber hygiene and be very, very suspected. If somebody asks you for your password, don't ever give it. Be very careful. Don't click on files you don't know. Don't open files that you don't know. Again, we can provide technologies that will protect that files better, and I'd like more customers to use it. But if you don't know, just don't open it. It's very, very simple. And I think by that we can really, really reduce the risk attack. And if we deploy the right architectures, I think we can make our environment actually very, very safe.
Actually, Gil, I have one more question for you. You had mentioned that enterprises will have a number of vendors to provide their cybersecurity. Isn't that inherently risky by having multiple vendors within one enterprise? How can companies mitigate that kind of risk?
So first, it depends who you ask. If you ask me, we are providing today a very consolidated architecture, so I would advocate for using that. Some companies are saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Actually use different vendors to provide different levels of prevention. The reality of the world is not whether it's ideological or not. It's the fact that the security market has been challenging. It's been evolving. It's been, by the way, very successful for investors. So investors funded many more technologies and many more companies that would create more things to the customer. And today, as I said, typical organization already using more than 12 security solution, and that's too much. So I think the next step, and by the way, that's happened on almost every market, is consolidation. And in consolidation is not just one company selling multiple products, but as I say, products that are well architected, that are collaborative. So when I identify a risk anywhere in the world, it's automatically blocked everywhere. So if I identify the malicious file on my email, this file, nobody will be able anymore to download it, to access it through Gmail, to do anything, because that file is now flagged as risky for the organization. And so across all attack vectors. And I think that's some of the things that the industry will go through in the next few years.
All right, Gil, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.